This episode discusses sensitive topics that may be distressing to some listeners, including molestation, grooming, trafficking, sexual assault, and unaliving oneself. We encourage listeners to prioritize their well-being and take breaks as needed. With that, listener discretion is advised. John Michael Lander, a former Olympic diving contender and sexual abuse survivor, was groomed and trafficked into silence by adults in his training program at just 14 years old. Now a certified trainer and life coach at the Self-Talk Institute, he empowers individuals to change their lives by transforming their self-talk and programming. As the founder of An Athlete's Silence, John Michael has been featured in major media outlets like Time Magazine and USA Today, contributed to the Athlete's Bill of Rights, and participated in discussions for the Netflix film Athlete A. Most recently, he was interviewed for the George Clooney production company for a documentary regarding the sex scandal of a doctor and a university. This is True Crime in Hollywood, John Michael's personal tale. So I am sitting down this morning with John Michael. This is someone I met a couple years ago. We did a little workshop together through the amazing Cheryl Hunter, who is another survivor. So John Michael, welcome to True Crime in Hollywood.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah. So jumping right into it, I want to talk about being a teenage survivor, but I also want to talk about how you were ready to break your silence and how did that look for you?
Well, I basically broke my silence about 5 years ago,
Yeah.
and I was a teacher, and I had a sophomore boy come into my classroom and tell me that he had a boyfriend, and I was like, "So, okay, great, whatever." And he said, "Yeah, he's 35," and I went,
Wow.
"What?" And I said, Does your mom know?" And he said, "Yeah, my mom and my grandmother know because he helps pay for the bills and the groceries and everything." And that was like red flags for me. And I was like, whoa, whoa. I reported it. I told him I had to go and report to the principal. And I actually ended up speaking to the assistant principal. And she says, "Oh, we already know about that. And there's nothing we can do about it because his mother and grandmother support it. And by the way, he has a history of this."
Wow.
And I went, "Oh, okay." So that kind of opened up the whole Pandora's box for me because until then I had like totally ignored any of those things.
Right.
And that started this whole escalation of figuring out what was going on. And then I did a TED Talk, which is where I first talked about being an abused athlete
Yeah.
and all through my high school years. So that's how that all started. That's how it all opened up.
Wow. Wow. So you internalized that for so many years, and then it was that moment. How did that then kind of build for you then? Was that kind of just you're starting to have memories of like grooming and how all of that kind of
Yeah,
happens?
yeah. Oh my God, it was like an explosion basically inside. These thoughts just started rushing in because I realized that I was sitting there talking to myself in a way. That was about the time and the age that I was. And I was like, oh my God. And then I started having nightmares and things started coming up. And I slowly started to unpack things
Yeah.
and I started realizing. And then I went back through my old journals. I used to journal everything. And I started finding evidence and finding letters and stuff like that that supported this.
Yeah. That's intense. Can you talk a little bit about your upbringing, but also what we're kind of talking about, especially with you being an athlete? Talk to me about that.
Well, I came from a pretty normal background, I would assume. My dad was an architect, so we were okay. We weren't rich, we weren't poor. We were like right in the middle. I started diving when I was 13,
Mhm.
and by 14, I had made the junior Olympic team and took eighth. And that brought a lot of attention to me because then
Yeah.
the next step would be the Olympics, which would happen like in the next 4 years. So it was all about this incredible opportunity. And they ran a newspaper, an article in the newspaper, and a lawyer read it. And this lawyer then ends up contacting my mother, and they start meeting. They keep having like one-on-ones. They'd have coffee, or they would meet at my mom had a little store, and he would meet at her with her at the store. And he started talking to her about how he had this group of professionals that could help me with my Olympic dream and my college scholarship dream. And she thought that was a great idea. And he basically said, unless I have your permission, I'm not going to go any further with this. And so she said, okay, you can. He said, but there are things you have to do for me if I do this for you and your family. All the professionals will give you and your family anything that they work with. So if it's a doctor, you'll get free medical exams, you'll get free medicine, you'll get all this, but you have to make sure that your son is at the right place at the right time and ready to go to meet these professionals. And she's like, oh, okay. And then he basically then turned it a little bit and gave her the threat, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. So grooming is all about getting you to believe them and trusting them. But then they're going to give you a little like, if you don't do this, this is what happened. And so he said, if you do not follow through with this, we will sue you for all the money that these professionals have given to you and to your family. And then we will have, family services come in and take the children away. And I was one of six. So that was a big deal. And so she says, okay. So she signed a contract with this.
Wow.
And it was then, only then did he have that contract, did he ever come to me. And then he started talking to me and telling me that this could be my opportunity to go to the Olympics because, well, the way my parents were going, they weren't going to be able to get me the best coaches and all this, but this group of professionals could. And all I had to do was make sure that I had my grades up, do well at the competitions, and make sure the professionals were happy. That was basically all I was told. And
Mm.
I said, sure, okay. So I signed a contract. And one of the things he said for me was that I was not allowed to tell anyone about it. If I informed anyone, then everything would be ruined. And so basically, what we learned later is that he had already spoken to our team and the people at that ran the diving team and basically had built up that said, we're going to bring these sponsors in and help your team. We'll pay for certain things as long as you let us have access to this one athlete. And so it was like very strategic, very planned out,
Mhm.
and very professionally done, actually. So
Mhm.
that's how it all happened. And so the next 4 years, I spent my time dealing with being passed around by all these professionals and going to certain events. I got to travel a lot. They would take you out to the Rose Bowl to watch the Ohio State play and stuff like that. And what I realized is that this was an organization of six-figure professionals. They all
Mhm.
had to have six figures and they protected each other. They were lawyers, they were judges, they were police officers, they were therapists, they were doctors. They were all these people, and they all had each other's back. I remember one time one of the boys crashed a Mercedes, and he had some marijuana on the seat beside him. And so the police said, "Hey, we're gonna, come down." So the lawyer actually went down and made a deal with the court, gave them some money, and everything was settled out of court.
Jeez. Oh
So
my goodness.
I don't know if
Wow.
that helps fill you out a little bit. I mean, I can tell you
Yeah.
more, but it's
Yeah.
it's it's the important thing that I want to stress here is that all 4 years of my high school year, these things were happening, and I never got the professional help that I needed. So
Right.
then when I went on to college and everything else, I had no idea how to handle things.
Absolutely. Oh, I am so sorry. That is heartbreaking to hear that it was so ingrained in that. And then in professionals that you are supposed to also respect and listen to. So I can totally see how that would manifest into a really traumatic situation.
Trusted these people. That was the big
Yeah.
thing
Right.
because I was told to trust them.
And that seems very similar to some other Olympian survivors as well, which leads me into my next question. We have seen this wave of athletes coming forward and also breaking their silence. Why do you think it's so easy for abusers to groom around them, first of all? And then do you think talking about your experience will help hopefully mitigate over the course of time? I would hope so, but do you think that will help?
What I like to talk about is that I have this idea, the predatory grooming trifecta. And this is where the predators groom the organization or the institution first, and they
Mm,
get their protection and their background, such as what we saw with the US gymnastics team.
correct.
And he had set himself up so well within that organization that they were going to protect him because they didn't want their name tarnished. They didn't want their brand to be looked at as anything else. And they were going to defend him as far as they could
Mhm.
because if it was true, then it'll look bad on them, and they would lose sponsorship and all this stuff and their income. So the institution and the organization first are the where they go for, and I'll get that support. These predators, then the predators go to the parents or the guardians.
Hmm.
And again, which we saw in the Penn State, which we saw at Ohio State, which we saw at U.S. Gymnastics, and they will get the parents on their side. And Nasser, the doctor for the U.S. Gymnastics, would abuse these gymnasts with the parents in the room with them
Correct.
in the back. And he would use medical jargons. I have to manipulate this. I have to move this. And so when the young girl would tell mom, hey, that didn't feel right. That was really weird. He touched me. And she says, oh, no, no, that was a medical thing. They had to loosen up your hip.
Yeah.
So the parents are supporting the predator. And then once the predator has the institution and the parents, then they will go towards the child. And
Hmm.
they until they have those two, they won't go after that child. I've seen it where they drop that child completely because they didn't want that one. And then the other false thing that I think people don't realize that in sports, it's such a small nucleus. The higher you get, the more elite that you become, the group becomes smaller. The athletes, there's less athletes, there's less coaches, and it's tight, and there's a certain jargon, and it's such a secretive society, basically, you
Hmm.
know, and it is a prime place for predators because they're protected.
Yeah.
And we saw that with the Boy Scouts of America, how that happened.
Hmm.
It's all protected. And the other thing that they do is they actually normalize this. So in my case, I thought this was an opportunity, and I was informed that this is what elite athletes had to go through. It really doesn't matter. And a lot of times, sexual abuse for males are hidden as initiations, rite of passage,
Hmm.
And so we're told that this is no big deal. This is just part of it. This is what
Right.
it's all about. If you want to be good, you got to put up with this. If not, there's five other people behind you that could take your place. So, and if you don't go through with it, you're not going to go to college. We're not going to give you a college scholarship. We're not going to let you go represent the U.S. anywhere. So it's all about this fear. It is.
Yeah.
It's put in on us. And so that's why a lot of people say, well, why didn't you fight back? Well, first of all, when this starts to happen, your body goes into kind of like a shock. Is this really am I making this? You start questioning all these things. And
Hmm.
so you don't know what to do. And by the time you're already in the middle of it, and then you're like, what do I do? What do I do? And I think a lot of people think that men should fight back. Well, yeah, we should. But first of all, this is a doctor that I respect and a doctor that I'm supposed to give my trust into. And he's telling me he has to do this for my benefit. It's all
Hmm.
about my benefit in this case. Even as it got worse and worse and worse, it was still considered, I'm doing this for you.
Mm.
Predator will say that to you. And
Yeah.
and and we see that in entertainment world as well. I hope someday that my voice and my story can help someone.
I'm positive it does, and it already has. And you're leading into my next question because male survivors are treated so differently, especially when it comes to the media and even in documentaries, if you will. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think first of all, we're in a male-dominated world. Everything's run right now by males, and I think we're taught that, you can't rape a male, and if you did, then that kid wanted it or that person really wanted it. So it's impossible to do that any other way. That's the way we're taught. And we're also taught that if anything happened, you like what in my case, I remember one day I told my mother I was going to go.
Mm.
And then she says, you have to go. You came all this way. And I said, no, I don't. I don't want to go. I don't want to be a part of this. So I thought I was standing up for myself. I thought I could put it into it. And I remember her slapping me across the face and saying, this person drove all this way, and it's not nice to make lies up about people. He is a prominent person in the community. Everyone likes him. So if anything really happened, you must have did it. It was your fault. So if my mother didn't believe me, I didn't think anybody else would believe me. So I carried that with me all through my life until,
Mhm.
I broke my silence with my TED Talk. I was still holding that secret. And it's just that whole turmoil. And our society, you know, we don't want to talk about men. Athletes are our heroes. They can't be vulnerable victims. We don't
Mhm.
even want to expect that. And if you think about the Olympics, just we're in Paris, and the stats say that 1 in 4 females and 1 in 6 males are sexually abused before 18. How many athletes were there? Again, within a situation like athletes and sports, which is so contained and separated from society in itself, this is where the breeding ground for predators can grow
Mhm.
because no one's going to believe it. Who are they going to believe? Are they going to believe the guy that just had 3 Olympic champions? Or are they going to believe a 14-year-old kid who said he touched me? You know, we're making money on these three Olympians. Who are you? You know,
Yep.
and
Yep.
and for men, it's really hard. And I'm grateful for the Me Too movement, and I'm grateful for Simone Biles and Ali Raisman for coming forward and saying this happened to us. And if it wasn't for those people, I don't think men would have even a little bit of a voice to be heard,
Yeah.
because it's still frowned upon. I mean, we look at Terry Crews, who's come out and said, "Hey, it's happened to me, everybody." And look at
Right.
Terry Crews,
Right.
and hopefully people will realize if it happened to him, it can happen to anyone.
And that's a really good point that you're putting out there because I think the other thought too, just as you said, you look at Olympians as they are this strong force and nothing can touch them. How do you think that has translated, though, in the media? Because I think most notably, when we're talking about male survivors, a lot of people then bring up like Michael Jackson. And that
Mhm.
is someone that we have also seen where survivors have broken their silence and then just pure mayhem with that. What do you think is the responsibility in terms of like media covering that? And what do you hope to see happen down the line?
First of all, I hope, and this is just my hope, is that um, the victims are no longer being charged as victims, if that makes sense.
Yes.
You know, we're being treated that we're the ones who caused this whole thing and it was our fault. And I think that's one of the things that we see. We see that with Anthony Rapp and Kevin Spacey situation.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember watching that whole thing happen, and Anthony Rapp said he took me to the bedroom, and the defendants came in and said he was in a studio apartment. There was no bedroom, so you must be lying. The kid was 14. Excuse me? Things like that. And I think that as a victim, and I'm going through this right now with the Ohio State case, where they repeatedly will interview you and make sure that your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed. And if you said it in the same inflection that you did the last time, because if it's not, then you lied.
Uh-huh.
And it's always we are going to the side of the predator and we're protecting him, and our law and our everything is just focused on making sure that that person's okay because we're going to ruin his life. But
Mm-hmm.
what they don't realize is that the kids or the people that he had already messed around with, their lives are ruined forever because we carry that with us. And unless we get the proper help, and unless we get the right places, it stays with us and it gets worse and worse and worse. I had this thing that I say that if we could go back and talk to all the men who have committed suicide, I guarantee we would find that more than half of them had been abused as children
Mm. That
because we just
makes
have no resources or no outlet to talk about it. And
right.
when we do talk about it, we're belittled,
Yeah.
We're no
Yep.
longer a man. We're us,
Yeah.
basically.
And I hope and I pray over, this next course of time and this next generation, we can break that cycle and really be able to talk about this and not so in a more taboo fashion, if you will. But the other thing too that you and I talked about recently is that you've made your way into the Hollywood orbit as well. Tell
Mhm.
me about your journey entering in that scene and what your intentions were initially.
Throughout my 4 years of high school, I kept quiet and I kept focused. I ended up winning the Norway Cup and the Danish Cup, which set me up beautifully for a scholarship at the University of California, Irvine. And I was accepted as a pre-med major, and so I went. And as I was there, by after winning these medals, I had been thrusted into like media, like interviews with the reporters, talking about what it was like to be 16 years old and winning the gold medal and stuff like that. So I was always interested in that. And when I got there, I met this young girl, and she asked me if I'd audition with her, and I said, "Sure, why not? I'll do it." And so we went to the audition, and what was happening is they were auditioning for the fall play, but they were also auditioning for a movie of the week that was going to
Mm.
be shot on campus. So they were holding two auditions at one time. And so we went through it, and unfortunately for her, she did not get cast, but I got cast in both.
Wow.
And so that kind of threw me into this whole experience. And so after shooting the movie of the week, I got my after card and my SAG card. And so the next thing I did is I started figuring out, okay, I'm going to try to do something oh, look, there's an ad for General Hospital. They're looking for pictures. So I sent my picture. They were looking for people from Arabia. And I said, oh, I'll send my stuff. And I was this blonde hair kid. And they laughed at it. They called me in and said, are you interested in coming in and do some extra work for us? And I said, sure. So then I was driving all the way, an hour and 15 minutes to Hollywood to do, General Hospital. And it slowly grew into one-liners and then day players and stuff like that. So that was how it all happened. That's how that all
Yeah.
started.
Wow.
But the thing that was crazy about this, and I must say, is that my traffickers, if we call them that, the professionals, were still in touch with me. They were paying for me going to Irvine, California, anything that was like, the room and board and stuff that was not covered by my scholarships. So my mother kept them in touch of where I was and what I was doing. And since I didn't get the help that I needed, I kind of repeated certain things, certain behaviors, and I had upset a grad student, and the grad student was really mad at me and started following me. And by after I came back home for Christmas, went back out in January, he found me,
Mm.
and he left me in the wooded area of school. The next morning, I woke up, I was cut up, and I had to go to the emergency. And right then is when everything broke, and I fell apart. I kept 4 years, felt fine. It took this one grad student and I fell apart. And so they had to ship me back home and call the lawyer to bring me back home. So they put me right back into that group of people. So that's how that whole thing happened. And it
Yeah.
wasn't until I met a teacher at the university that I was going to here in Ohio, because I thought I got to do something. And she was a dance teacher and she brought me into her office and said, okay, dude, tell me what's going on with you. I can see it in your eyes. So after a while, we started warming up and I shared with her, and she's the one who broke everything and got me back out to LA. She called up the casting directors from General Hospital and said, look, we got to get him out of here. And you have a place for him to stay and everything like that, and give him a job again. Let him do extra work or whatever. And they said, sure, bring him back. And so that's how I went. And she gave me a ticket and she said, do not tell your mother or anyone where you are. This has got to stop.
Wow.
And that's how
Wow.
she saved me. So that's what I did. And but what I didn't realize is that I then put myself back into the situation with Hollywood, and their monsters are there. And
Hmm.
again, this was normal for me. This whole kind of situation. You go into an audition, you're down to five guys, and they ask you to take your shirts off. There we all are, standing there with our shirts. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to an audition and they asked me to do it in my underwear so they could see how my body looked while I was talking.
My goodness.
And I do remember I did a film. I got the lead in the film, but in the audition, they videotaped me in my underwear because they said you're gonna be in your underwear in the film. We got to see it. Then they packaged the film with that audition piece in it, so
Oh
people
my
could go and
gosh.
watch it. But I didn't know anything different. I had gone from sports, who told me that this is okay for my coach to touch me in front of people, which is what he did,
Hmm.
and that it was okay for casting directors to say these things to you, because who's going to believe you? You know what I mean?
Right.
And I remember going to a very well-known actor's party, and I met his beautiful wife, and we were sitting there talking, and my manager was with the star, and he said, "Oh yeah, he's pretty. He'll do fine. How's he in bed?" And that's when I started to realize that they don't care about me,
Right.
about my acting. They just care about if they're going to score.
My goodness. I am so sorry that you've had to
But
endure
this is
that on two different scales, but
right. But it
you're
seemed like
hitting
it seems so normal. You know what I mean? So
right.
you go from
Yep.
one to the next and the next and the next. But I will say that I know, like, I call them the two Corys, and I'm sure you know who they are,
Yep.
with whole Michael Jackson and everything, and nobody believed them.
Yeah.
And there's nothing worse than being called a liar and then not being able to work. I can remember my agents telling me, don't tell anybody, don't say
Yeah.
anything to anybody because they won't listen to you.
Yeah.
And there's all those stories about, well, if you do this for me, you can get a couple of films. We'll put you in a couple of films, but you got to do this for me. And I can remember my agent, who was a female, said, no, 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 you don't need that film.
Mm. That's
And,
incredible
but
that the agent can say that though.
yeah,
That's
and
yeah.
I didn't get it. And unfortunately, I was glad for that. But I also remember that I became very stiff, and they used to call me the ice prince, and nobody could break through that. I kept myself very rigid. And I will share, though, there were moments. It was a film that I wanted so badly, and it was Front Runner. I don't know if you remember that book by Patricia Now Warren.
Yeah.
And the first time it came around, Paul Newman was going to play the coach, and I was up for the athlete, and I thought this is perfect. So I really did everything I could to prepare for the screen test. I go to the screen test, and it's just me and this camera person.
Mm.
Producer wasn't there. And I was like, oh, okay, no problem. So we start doing the scene, and he steps in the camera with me. And it was this lead up to the love scene. Well, the camera never stopped, and he
Oh
filmed the whole
no.
thing.
Oh no.
And what's crazy is why I didn't stop. Why didn't I walk away from it? People are going, why did you let it happen? And at that point, you're so involved in it and you want the role so bad that you lose that reality for a moment. And then it's all over. And then you're sitting there going, oh my God, that's on tape somewhere.
Oh, John Michael, you're hitting at something really important that I want listeners to understand. Even though in your mind and your body, and you know this is wrong, there's also the fight or flight in you that then can also freeze you. And you don't know how to advocate for yourself. And knowing that I have been in similar situations, it's this power imbalance, it's this dynamic. You're trying to do whatever you can to advance your career or get the, prime role that you envision for yourself. And then it comes to this and it's so hard. Play those like fine lines because it's convoluted in a way and it puts you in the worst situation. And I just, oh my goodness, this is absolutely horrible and heartbreaking. I'm seriously so sorry that you had
Well,
to
well,
endure
thank you,
that.
and back at you as well. And I'm sure you understand this too. It's interesting how, you know, abuse against females in the industry seems to
Mhm.
be starting to become more prevalent, and we hear about it. We hear about the Weinsteins. We hear about,
Yes.
Cosby and all that stuff, and people are starting to believe it.
Hmm.
But you've got to also understand with men, we were told that it wasn't really sex.
Yeah.
It's just getting off.
Yeah.
You're just letting off steam. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean you're gay. It doesn't mean this, but you know, and I was watching Hollywood,
Hmm.
the Netflix show, and I
Oh
was like,
yeah,
oh
I
my
forgot about that
God,
show. That's right.
there it is. There it
Yeah.
is. There it is. It's all happening in front of you,
Yeah.
and how the agent comes in after the character who's playing Rock Hudson and says, if you want this, you got to do this. And you're like, but it's funny because once you get to a certain point in the industry, you're not only about yourself, it's about the agents behind you don't want to disappoint. It's about the producer you don't want to disappoint because you want to work with them again or somewhere along the line. The director you don't want to disappoint. And it's not just about yourself anymore. It's about
Yeah.
this whole team that's behind you.
Yeah.
And if I don't follow through, have I let them all down?
Right.
Because we got to pay them.
Yeah.
And it becomes about this whole dynamic, again, a power situation.
Yeah.
And they use that power.
Hmm.
I can't tell you how many times I was at a casting call and it's down again, down to the three or four of us. Any one of us could play the role, and they play that game one on one. So,
Yeah.
you really want this?
Ugh.
Show me. It doesn't matter. They're going to say it doesn't mean anything.
Hmm.
We're not going to tell anybody, and yet it follows you. And then you've created this, because they talk. They go and they tell
Yes.
all their friends. They all know
Right.
who's, and then all of a sudden you're getting calls for things that you didn't think you'd be getting calls for.
Mm.
And I know that Hollywood. And when I first went there, I was with a huge agency.
Uh-huh.
And I was like number 10 or 12 on that list of boys my type. And I would only get a chance at the first nine or didn't go on the audition. And then you got to move up. But it soon became like, oh, okay, let's bring him in and see what we can do. And it had nothing to do with the call. The Will and Grace has an episode where Jack decides to have an imaginary audition at Adler's office. And so he's there and they come in and he starts asking them to do things. And then Karen says, what are you doing? This isn't very nice. And she goes, watch this. And then she joins in with him. It's totally
Yeah.
exactly what happens, but it's done
Wow.
in such a way that we laugh at it and it's
Right.
funny,
Yeah.
because at one point, Jack says, okay, take all your clothes off for us. We need to see how you look. And the guy goes, what? And then he walks out. And Karen, it's just interesting how they were able to play that.
Terrifying, because it's normalized. At that
Yes.
point, it's normalized and
And laughed
that's the
at.
joke and laughed at.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's even more disturbing. I want to go back to the predatory grooming trifecta that you've
Thank you.
talked about
Yes.
and expanding that and correlating it to Hollywood and in this industry, but also how you've seen this play out also as an observer and watching this. I mean, that Will and Grace reference would absolutely be one of them. But yeah, what can you say about that?
Well, I think a prime example of this would have been the Nickelodeon scandal.
Yep. Yep, yep, yep.
The documentary, go and watch that. That is completely played out. We saw how they manipulated Nickelodeon themselves, the
Mhm.
predators.
Mhm.
We saw how many predators got to be a part of that organization and how many got away with it for as long as they did.
Right.
And then the interesting thing about the Nickelodeon, there wasn't just gay predators, there were straight predators in there as well.
Mhm.
And the harassment behind the scenes with the female writers and how they finally spoke up. But the thing is that there's that fear that if I ever speak up, I'll never work in this world again.
Uh-huh.
We will blackball you like that as fast as you can because we have all the power. So that's where that whole thing is working. The thing with entertainment is many times the parents are not involved. But
Mhm.
as we saw in the Nickelodeon, they were involved, and how they talk to the parents and how they basically set the parents up that we need to do this. And we even saw the racism with the
Yes.
African Americans or the black actors and how they were put aside and they didn't make as much money. But that seemed to be okay for everybody, except for one mother started to say something. The next thing you know, her son's gone.
Yes.
He's
Hmm.
fired. He's
Hmm.
never brought back. So that's how they dealt with it. And that's how they had the power. And that's how they kept it going for as long as they did. And the same thing with Michael Jackson. Who wants to believe that Michael Jackson could be a predator? No one does. He's a genius if we think about it.
Right.
And we've seen this in the music industry and in the dance world, where the
Mm.
choreographers do the same thing. But we don't want to
Yeah.
call them gay because look at all the stuff that they've done. How many lives have they ruined along the way?
Uh-huh.
Because it's not some band-aid that you can put on. And I think with men, we suppress it for so long that it becomes a lifelong journey of trying to heal ourselves. And because we don't want to talk about it. I mean, I knew that once I was going to come out with the TED Talk, I knew that would be the last time I ever got to do any kind of acting. I knew that.
Yeah.
And one of my greatest dreams was always to be on a Hallmark film. I know it's so crazy. I wanted to do that.
I
And I
love
and
it.
and I know it's never going to happen now because I'm that man who spoke up about sexual abuse.
Hmm.
And I hate to say that we've seen some incredible actors who have spoken up and then their
Yes.
careers have disappeared. And thank God there's one who just won an Academy Award a couple of years ago that came back.
Yeah.
But before that, no one would speak to him.
Hmm.
And he was a huge star.
And
And I
you're
feel sorry
absolutely
for
right.
women because I
Yeah.
think we don't realize the amount that women have gone through and what they've had to deal with, not only in the imbalance of money, but also the imbalance of the power within the struggle. They can't get roles after a certain age because they're washed up, they're too old. All these dynamics that we place on women, and
Yes.
yet we don't talk about men and what happens to them.
And we know it exists. And that's what's frustrating is that
Yes.
watching this cycle and it's, and I know, women are getting more coverage and more of their stories out there, but this is why it was important for me to have you on as well,
Thank
because
you.
there are so few. And it's also coming from the inception of Hollywood. I mean, I'm someone who loves learning about old Hollywood, and I
Uh,
watched the Elizabeth Taylor tapes or whatever it
yes,
was
I love
on
that.
Max. Yeah.
Yes,
And
yes,
so listening to her, also listening to Rita Moreno as well, talk about these things during those times and realizing, oh my gosh, there hasn't been that much of a difference
right.
now in present day and present times. And the difference now today is post Me Too, and we are seeing, more survivors come forward and speak out. But I mean, you brought up the dance world too, and that's the world that I lived in before I got into the full Hollywood lifestyle, if you will. And even there, even in the dance community, it is not talked about. It is so prevalent and is also a hope that I have to bring some of those bigger name dancers and choreographers on who have broken their silence, but somehow their stories have magically have gone away, I think.
Disappeared. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, which
And it
is another
depends on
thing.
what the gender is too, you know.
Exactly. Yep.
Um,
Yep.
I'm grateful for the Me Too movement. I'm grateful for the women that are standing up against all these people and are coming forward and talking about things. And, even with P. Diddy coming out now and all the women
Oof.
speaking up about that.
Yeah.
And, it's just heartbreaking to know that this is happening even today. Since
And
we've
it's
gone
even
through all this,
scarier. Yeah.
it is. And we're finding out that there's more and more and more and more
Right.
about this. And I'm glad people are starting to listen to women and starting to say, you must be right. Because, we saw that big scandal within our politicians, and I don't even want to
Yes.
say his name. And there she was. She
Yeah.
was speaking, and you knew something was wrong. Something happened to that young woman, well, when she was young.
Yep.
And to have him start screaming at the top of his lungs, to what?
Yep. Yep.
If I scream loud enough, you're going to listen to me and not her?
Yep.
And yet we sided on him.
Yes.
We
Uh-huh.
and he's now where he is, and she's where,
Uh-huh.
unfortunately. And those are the way that's how it's worked, and that's how it keeps continuing to work, especially even in Hollywood. Our directors can do whatever they want, depending on who they are, and if they can
Absolutely.
get away with it. And I
Oof.
think until we can stop that demand that they're asking for, it's going to continue
Mm-hmm.
because there's always going to be a new way to turn it around, and it's always going to be the young actor's fault
Yeah.
because they wanted to become a star. They would do anything, and they came on to me. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
how many times did we hear that with Kevin Spacey?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They came on to me. I didn't
Right.
know. I thought this was a go. Okay, this was a go. No,
Ugh.
and I think what's really sad is within athletics and our football teams. I know several football players who are abused within the team, in the locker
Wow.
room,
Yeah.
and no one talks about it.
Yeah.
You know, it's because it's what happens in the locker room stays there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's our silent bro romance or our bro language that we keep. We protect each other. We're together, and we're not going to let anyone know. But it doesn't stay in the locker room. It
Yeah.
bleeds out. The
Right.
same thing we see in Hollywood. Abused people are going to go out to other people. It continues to grow. And how many stars do we know that have purchased prostitutes and then
Yeah.
turn around and lie about it and then settle out of court?
And it's unnerving because I I was going through Netflix the other night with my husband and I'm scrolling through and I see a lot of old movies and I'm like, "Oh, I used to like that movie." But realizing the reason I don't like it anymore is because somebody's been outed as a predator, an actor or whatever it may be. And now with the music industry, I've even joked my Apple library is just shrinking
Oh
because of
no.
how many predators are actually out there and knowing how many I've looked up to and believing that they were good people. And it's just like, oh my gosh. I mean, I hate to put this out there, but someone like Lizzo, who was such a big deal to me, and I loved everything about her and her message. And then you find out these things were happening to her dancers. I mean,
Right,
it's just like I absolutely love my career. This industry is so difficult. It's so hard and it's art that we're all drawn to in some capacity, but then it gets, just
right,
infected with this situation and it leaves me feeling defeated. And I can't imagine for yourself also to know that you were trending in the right direction and this is where that all kind of ended. But
right. And I think people need to understand too that it's not always bad. You
yes.
know,
Yeah.
there are some major high point in this industry. And
Yeah.
and and if you can get to that place, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, and it's not all bad. There's not all bad people out there. And we want to see the best in everybody. I know I do. And I think that's one of the reasons I got in trouble is that I couldn't
Mhm.
imagine somebody would do that, you know?
Mhm.
And I was in a situation where I was with a casting director and producer who was creating a group of actors together, which is like a casting group. They could, he would work
Yeah.
with us and he would train us, and casting people would come in and they would just hire out of his corral, if you want to call it,
Yeah.
And we had guys and girls in there, and I met this girl that I fell in love with, and I thought she was going to be my wife for the rest of my life. And unfortunately, I didn't have the money at the time to pay for her to be
Yeah.
there. But it's this casting person said, I can take care of that for you.
Mm.
And he was linked with a major actress who was an Academy Award winner. And it was like this, like I became a triangle,
Yeah.
with these two. And it
Yeah.
was really, really scary, but yet I was getting all these opportunities and I was being screen test for all these projects,
Right.
and I was like, this is happening, it's working, you know, and I thought this is it. But I personally couldn't handle it
Yeah.
because I couldn't keep the secret.
Right.
I couldn't protect him, which was the
Mhm.
casting director, and I couldn't protect her, the Academy Award actress, and I was drowning,
Yeah.
you know, and I couldn't say anything to the girl that I was seeing because she was part of the corral as well.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to tell her because then what would she think? It's all this mental gymnastics
It
that
is.
we
Yep.
like, put ourselves through.
Yes. That's a perfect way to put it. So, with that being said, you have been able to publish a couple books, Surface Tension and Cracked Surface. What was that process like, and how did that affect your healing journey?
Well, I will tell you, it's really interesting. I had shopped these around to several uh, editors, and they all said no because it had to deal with male abusing males. We can't have that. And I was like, wow. So then I ended up going to a self-publishing company called Page Publishing, and they said, "We'll publish it for you." And I said, "This is what it is. This is what it's." They said, "We don't care." And they read the script. They said, "That's good. Let's go with this." And so they were the first persons that showed me that this could happen. And so I went with it, and it was really liberating in a way. And I wrote it in third person because at the time I wasn't ready to write in first. I wasn't
Got
ready to
it. Yeah.
own it completely. And I'm ashamed of that today because I thought, oh my God, there was my opportunity. But it became people really liked it. So we did a second book, which was Crack Surface, which was about going to the University of California, Irvine, and that experience of what happened there and getting taken back to Ohio. And then there's a third installment, which I hope to have finished by this spring, which is called Shattered Surface, which is my life in Hollywood and my
Yes.
experience of what I went through and how by not getting the help I needed when I was younger, it just kept amplifying and
Yeah.
putting myself in situations that, I believe we all put ourselves in places so that we can learn from them.
Hmm.
And I think I was constantly put in that situation to figure out, hey, you need to look at this. This is something that you need to start fixing because we're going to keep repeating it and repeating it until you figure it out. And so I'm glad about that. I'm glad the books are doing okay.
Yeah.
It's hard to read because
Yeah.
people don't want to talk about that. People don't want to talk about a teenage boy being abused by a group of professional men,
Yeah.
but it's happening everywhere. It's
Yep.
happening everywhere. And then to see that that continues on and you carry it with you into your professional life, you know, because
Yeah.
I do believe that acting is a profession and it was my career and I did really well at it. I created a lot of um, original roles, like
Yeah.
the Hardy Boys and
Yeah.
where the mysteries of babies come from for Christopher Durang, and so many other opportunities came through because of it.
Yeah.
But we need to help these people
Yeah.
because the mental health is just horrible. And if they continue this secret society, which I believe is in Hollywood still,
Hmm.
these young people have no other choices, either quit business or endure it and
Yeah.
go with it.
Right. Ugh. Thank you for that
Thank you.
and being so vulnerable in both of those books, and especially for this third one coming up. You really are. doing it and you are breaking it down for people, and it is uncomfortable. I know, oftentimes people will say that like, "Oh, I want to listen to your podcast, but I'm afraid it's going to be too much." And so I think having that fine balance, but also letting people, understand like we do have to talk about some of these harder things because I'm a firm believer that it does help somebody, even if that person doesn't, end up breaking their silence or anything like that, but just knowing that they're not alone. And that is
Right.
the biggest aspect of that. So, with that being said, why is it important to have survivors tell their own stories rather than someone else doing so on their behalf?
Well, I think there's a double-edged sword there in a good way, in the fact that by me sharing my story with you today, 'cause this is the first time I've really talked about Hollywood and what I went through,
Yes.
in such a public venue. It's healing.
Yes.
And it's on that aspect healing for me.
Mm.
And I think it's also healing for other people if they have gone through it as well. And oh my God, I can identify with you. What do I need to do? And you can lead them to getting the professional help that they need or getting whatever they can survive and move forward with life. And I think that's really the two things that I see by sharing my story and telling people this is still happening. It's happening everywhere. It's happening in community theater, for God's sakes,
Right.
in
Hmm.
all our cities. It doesn't
Yes.
have to be in Hollywood.
Yes.
It's happening in Tecumseh, Iowa, or whatever, because
Right.
people, whenever there's power, they will use that power to get what they think they want. And the
Mm.
sad thing about it is, studies have shown this, that many of the predators were abused people themselves when they were younger,
Correct. Yep.
and they don't know how to get past that. And they've convinced themselves that they're not hurting this other person. This is
Mhm.
love and stuff like that.
Yeah. Let me rephrase that. Do you have any do you have any advice for a trauma survivor that's considering breaking their silence and sharing their story in the media?
Yes. First of all, have a huge support group that you feel unconditional love from and that they are going to be there no matter what, because it is a journey and it is a difficult one and it's up and down. Because once you start to share your story, you will start to unpack other things that you didn't realize were there and they will come out and you need that support system. The other thing I would say is to have professional help somewhere. And in my case, I had a hard time with therapy because
Mm.
some of my predators were therapists. So every time I'd go into an office with them, it became about something else. And I did get to the point where I would just go in there and try to share everything I could exactly what they wanted me to say so I could get out of there,
Yes.
And they never helped me with the issue that I went through because they were adding to it. And then when I got older, I went to other therapists and it just didn't work. So what worked for me is when I met a woman by the name of Tracy Wright, who was with the Self-Talk Institute. And it was with through her that I started to realize that all the stories that I made up about myself to just get through the day were lies, false stories
Wow.
that I created because I had no other idea of how to survive. And once we started to work on that, where we were right now, she never went back to talk about what happened, the details about that, because it's just, we need you right here. We need you in the present. And I knew that going with a lot of therapists, they wanted to know the details. I always thought, are you enjoying this? You keep asking about the details about well, what does that have to do? It happened. It's over with. And I started realizing that the event itself is done with. It's over with. I can't do anything about that. The meaning that I put onto it, and the attachment and the emotions that I place on it is what's keeping me a victim. And until I started to see that and say, hey, this no longer has a hold on me. This is what it's happened. This is helping me to be who I am today. And so I myself got so passionate about the Self-Talk Institute that I became a trainer and a coach myself. And I'm helping survivors who have gone through major trauma, helping them to realize that the stories we told ourselves are not ours. They were ours to just borrow to get through that time period. And they're no longer helping us. They're actually hindering us. So what is the true story? You know?
Yeah.
And being able to find that power again and taking that power back, which is mine, and to realize that I had choices and decisions, even during the abuse. Whatever choice and decision that you made, were they based on survival mode or were they for you to run away? because there's times the flea comes in and you're able to get away and you're able to do that. And then the ramifications come back. And we have been trained and groomed that the predator is right.
Yes.
I've heard people who have been trafficked who ask permission to go to the bathroom, even when they're out of the trafficking situation, because
Wow.
they didn't know they were allowed.
Yeah.
One, two, and if they did go, was the trafficker thinking that I'm going to jump out the bathroom window? And if they don't come with us, so you got used to having that person standing there while you're going to the bathroom.
Right.
It's crazy. You
Uh,
lose all dignity, you lose all independence. You become you become a Stepford wife in a way,
right.
you know? You
Yeah.
become what they have molded you into because one, you're trying not to get hurt. Even
Hmm.
though the abuse is going to happen, how many times has the gun been pulled on you? Or, they get crazy.
Right.
And I remember some of my situations, I wanted to flip the switch. I
Hmm.
found that if I was in a car with one of those professionals, I would come onto them. And if I came onto them, that would make them uncomfortable because they had children my age.
Huh.
You know what I mean? And if
Yeah.
I turned on to them and said, hey, I could just see myself with you for the rest of my life, and in this whole fantasy world, two things would happen. I was either dropped off at the next stop or I got beat.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was I realized that if I could get them to climax first, then it was over with. And it was never sex. That's what I convinced myself.
Mm.
And so that was the power that
Yeah.
I would focus, get them, and then done, gone. I can go home now.
Huh.
And it's just these things that we use to survive, but are no
Yes.
longer helpful for us today. And trust issues are really hard.
Yeah. That is a massive one. And trusting anyone new is is what I've learned now too, where I just constantly have my guard up, which I never used to do until then. But yeah, you're
Right.
right. Can you talk a little bit more about being a life coach? And if someone is listening, what is the best way to get in contact with you?
You definitely can reach me through my website, johnmichaelander.com. Yeah, is that right? Yeah.
I'll make sure to
And
link it on the
please,
episode too.
thank you. How many times do you tell your own? Yeah, I'll practice on that one, Celene. Thank you. Um, yes, through that, they could also, reach out to the Self-Talk Institute and say, hey, I want to talk to John Michael. Can we figure that out? And they'll help out as much as you can. I can also give you my email address and stuff like that. That's the best way. And then we set up an intake call and we just talk for an hour and a half and we figure
Perfect.
out where you are, where you want to go, and what you want to do. And then we set up programs one-on-one. And we do it usually for 3 months, once a week for about an hour. Each person's program is different because we're all different.
Hmm.
And what works for you is not going to work for Susie over here. And
Yeah.
it's very important to make sure that we get that and we're able to construct the program for you.
Mm.
And you are the one that takes control. That's the thing that's so wonderful about self-talk. You start to understand that this is my story. This
Yeah.
is who I am. And I can say no and I can walk away. And it's all about that power that we didn't have before.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for everything that
Yes.
you're doing. I mean, from survivor to survivor, you're doing it. You're doing the damn thing. And I couldn't be more proud. I'm so glad that you are in my orbit and you have stayed in my orbit over the last couple of years. But I felt it in my heart as soon as I started working on this podcast. I was like, now is the time that I get to sit
Yes.
down with you. And here we are. So I'm about to change things up. We're going to start talking about some lighter things. So the Summer Olympics came and gone just
Yes.
last month, yeah. And what were some of your favorite moments or highlights from this past summer games?
Well, I have to say, one of my favorite moments was Simone Biles, of course. Everybody
Of
knows
course.
that, but I am so passionate about her due to the fact that Tokyo came and her twisties
Mhm.
and all that. And I
Yes,
love the fact that when she has talked about it, she said she had to go to Tokyo because if she didn't go, the whole thing with the Nasser situation would have been swept under the rug. She
correct.
was there to keep it prevalent and
Yes.
keep people to remember that. And then to see her go through all that and then come back and be this instrumental leader for these young women who are on the team,
Yeah.
and such an inspiration, and still a pillar for people who have been abused.
Yes.
She's still there,
Yeah.
and she's not afraid of it, and she'll tell people that. And I think she set boundaries this time that, cameramen had to be a certain distance away from her.
Mm-hmm.
Please step away.
Mm-hmm.
This is my space. Don't bring that. And she did it in such a way that I think it was classy. And I think it was
Yeah.
very, people respected her.
Yeah.
She's the GOAT.
Yeah.
I think that was one of my favorite, just watching that whole story unfold. There were so many stories involved. Unfortunately, we did have that volleyball player from the Netherlands
Yes.
who was an accused and went to prison for
Yep.
sexually
Yep.
abusing a 12-year-old when he was
Yep.
19. And the fallout about that was really like how they booed him every time he was on the court,
Right.
and how and sometimes I wonder, do we give people a second chance? I myself started thinking,
Mm-hmm.
does he deserve this opportunity
Uh-huh.
to represent his country at the Olympics, even though he had this horrendous situation happen? How many athletes there, again, were abused as
Yeah.
children and
Yep.
still have been able to perform the way they have? And I just find that all very, every 4 years, it's a mixed emotions because I never got to go to my Olympics
Yeah.
and because of what I went through. And yet I sit there and cheer these people who've been able to take all the things against them and still prevail.
Mm. I love that answer. And just to piggyback off of you, really, Simone has created such a platform to for survivors and then watching her Netflix limited series on
Oh my
really gave just such a beautiful overview of, everything that she was up against, like you mentioned, the twisties and just her mental health. And so, I mean, truly just what an honor to have her like in our country, but then representing this too. I mean, it felt really good to watch her and cheer her on that way. So I'm glad you brought her up in that capacity.
And see her succeed, but she did.
And see her succeed and walk away as the GOAT with those gold medals. I mean, truly, I've never seen anything like it. And I've been following gymnastics in the Olympics since I was in elementary school. And so, I grew up with Dominique Dawes and all of these
Mhm.
wonderful, amazing athletes. And truly, just as, like I said, Simone is just a powerhouse. And I'm just so happy she's doing the damn thing. So,
Yeah, and
yeah.
we have to give a shout out to Michael Phelps for being there as well,
Yes. Yeah.
because he talks about mental health so much
Yes.
now, and how he has spoken about how after the Olympics, a lot
Mhm.
of athletes go into a depression because they don't have anything else next,
Yeah, right.
and no one is helping them to, transition into society. It's
Yeah.
very similar to our war veterans. No one is
Mm,
teaching them how to get into society now. Oh, you're done with us. We're done with you. Thank you. Bye bye. And
yes,
they're like,
right.
oh, I just won how many gold medals, and you're not telling me what I do? And we forget
Right.
that athletes are so conditioned to follow directions from the coach and from people around them that you throw them
Mm,
out there and tell them, here's all your decisions. You make them yourself. And they're like, whoa, 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 I haven't made a decision my whole
yeah.
career. What are you telling me to do?
Yeah.
And it goes into this mental spiral, and people don't
Right.
realize that.
Yes. Thank you for hitting on that. That is really important too. And maybe something we'll have to talk about
Do it.
even more on
Yes,
a second
I would
episode.
love
But
that.
so now is the time for us to get to know you a little bit better.
My
So,
goodness.
like I said, now this is just whatever comes to you. So, first
Like,
question, if you could have any superpower, what would it be and why?
whoa, I love that question. And I have two, but I know you said one.
Hey, you
Uh,
can make an argument for two.
let's do two. I would love to be invisible, be able
Yeah.
to do my invisibility so that I could go and find and be around situations that I want to see without people knowing. And I know that could create issues for people because then you're listening to other people's conversations, but only in the best possible way. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? I
Yeah.
would love to have been in certain rooms to see what was happening and say, you lied about that. And how
Mm,
did you get away with that? So that would also propel my advocacy work, you know.
yeah.
Uh, um, and then I think I want to fly because I just love flying. and soaring. And I think diving, and I was a dancer myself, so I had that background as
Okay.
well.
Yeah.
So I loved it because I was in the air and
Yes.
I just that freedom.
Ooh, I love that. Now, what is the most interesting thing you've read or watched recently?
Well, it's very interesting is that watching Hollywood, the
Uh-huh.
Netflix show, was really kind of interesting in the fact of how much, I knew we were going to talk, but I had no idea that that's what that was all about. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, this is just right in
Yeah.
there. So I think that is pretty impressive. Um, anything by Wayne Dyer,
Mm. Yeah.
he has a whole bunch of inspirational books and stuff out there. And unfortunately, he's no longer with us, but just connecting with that and reading about that we're all part of this together.
Yeah.
And it's not this separation that we think we are. We're all actually intertwined. And by hurting someone else, we're hurting ourselves.
Mm. Now, what is a favorite show or favorite comfort movie for you?
Oh, you're going to think this is funny. So I've already said Hallmark, and I know that that's crazy, but the fact is it's like going into, I know that it's systematic and it's all formulated, and I know they're going to get happy at the end, and it's just that whole like
Yeah.
I'm not going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
Um, but my favorite movie of all time is Somewhere in Time. I don't know if you've seen this. It's kind of an old movie
Uh-uh.
with
No.
Christopher Reeves,
Oh,
and
wow.
yeah,
Okay.
and I love the movie.
I
So
love
it's
the
just one of those
movie.
things where, it's all about love and, you always find your spirit,
Yeah.
your soulmate somehow, no matter
Yeah.
where, if we're on different planes.
Yeah.
So,
Not to toot my own horn, but I was in a Hallmark movie
but come on,
as
can
a
you say
featured background person. Now, with that being said, though, I was in the opening of this film. It's called My Summer Prince.
I
This
have
came
watched it? I gotta go back now and look for you.
no way. Yeah. So
This,
I'm peppered throughout, but I'm in right in the opening. Yeah. That's hilarious. I've not talked about that.
I'm girl fanning here. Oh my God, you on a
Because a
Hallmark
lot of
movies?
Hallmark movies are filmed here in Utah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, yeah, so a lot of the Christmas movies, the Lindsay Lohan one that really blew up, was that a couple years ago or last? I can't
Oh,
remember.
yeah.
But yeah, a lot are filmed here. So you'll have to come out to Utah, and that's where they're at. Oh my goodness. And what about music? Are you into music?
I love music, and I love I'm not really good with the hard rock, but pop. I'm a Pink fan. That
Yeah.
woman, just
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Adele, and then you got Michael Bublé, and so I go all over the gamut. I even, she's in Wicked. She just went off the top of my head.
Ariana Grande?
Thank you very much. Never seen that. I
Yeah.
mean, you think about it when we watch Ariana Grande, you're like, oh, okay, she's okay. And then you
Yeah.
see these outtakes from the movie, and I'm like, oh my God. And then to hear her do legit Broadway,
Yeah.
okay. So, yeah,
Range, 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 range. Now, what if you were an animal? Which one would you be and why? Oh, I'm ex Yes. Who is that? Oh my
I would be a
goodness.
Boston Terrier, and this is my little girl.
Gosh.
Her name is Bear.
Bear, hi
Yeah, because when
Bear.
she was born, they called her Teddy Bear, and we keep our
Oh.
Bostons with the B name. And so we just
Oh.
dropped the Teddy off and we kept Bear. And she
Oh,
has
I
her
love
sister,
it.
which she's not here right now. But we had
She's off doing
two.
something. Oh my
It's
goodness.
she's and they've never been apart.
Oh,
And her name
stop.
is yeah, they've been together their whole life and
Oh
they
my
travel
goodness.
all over the place. They go to
Yeah.
Florida, they go everywhere.
Oh, I love it. Oh, Bear, she's so sweet. Oh,
She's just
you'll have to send me pictures so that I can
okay.
include them on your post for this episode. Now, how about a hobby or a passion that might surprise people about you?
Besides running, um, I think a passion that I have is love to paint. And I haven't done it
Ooh,
in a long time. My
yeah,
father was an artist, and so I think that was one of the things I always thought that I could connect with him if I could paint.
yeah.
And when he passed away, I stopped. So
Mm,
it's like, I have that urge again.
yeah.
I love art.
Oh, I love that.
I
That's
could go to the
beautiful.
museum and just sit there and look at all the pieces of art. It's
Yeah,
words.
love it. Now, what is your go-to karaoke song if you have one?
Do I have one? I don't think I have one.
Oh, okay,
Um,
fine.
that's sad. I'm sorry. I'm letting you down on
No,
that.
there's some people who
It's
are
like
like, I don't do karaoke. So.
it's yeah. I singing karaoke, it scares the crap out of me.
Yeah.
I have done many shows in New York where musicals and stuff like that, which I look at that, that's a character, that's okay. But to sing just myself, I
Yeah,
get freaked out. So
that's
I don't have
understandable.
one. And I
Okay,
know as soon
I
as we
will.
hang up, I'll go,
You're like, wait, I do have one.
I do, I do, I do. Let it
Now,
be. Let it be. There you go.
Let It Be, Beatles.
Oh yeah. Yes.
Yep. Okay. I like that one. I like that answer. I'll take it. How about a travel spot? Favorite travel spot or somewhere where you feel just at peace and at ease?
My favorite travel spot is Topsail Island, North Carolina.
Ooh.
We go there for a family vacation, and it's one of those times that whole week I'm in like a total different world.
Mm,
I think the second one would be Florida. We go
yeah.
down there all the time because my partner's parents have a house down there, so we travel down
Nice.
there. And the dogs go.
The
They
dogs
love it.
go.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, I
Florida
love it.
babes.
Now, this is your moment to shout out a local restaurant, bookstore, what have you. Where do you go that anyone who's listening needs to try sometime in their lifetime? Yeah, okay.
Bookstores are all disappearing on us,
This is true.
which is
This is true.
sad to me. It's
Yeah.
really sad to me.
What about a
So like
museum? Since you mentioned
Amazon
museum.
usually is our books. Um, Museums? Okay. Yeah, I just went there just recently, and
Okay.
I love it. It's the Air Force Museum
Ooh,
here in
okay.
Dayton, and
Yeah.
they have this section about the Holocaust,
Wow.
and it's just impressive because everything that's in this museum is all local people who's like their parents who were there
Oh
or their
my gosh.
grandparents, and they have a pristine uniform that a prisoner wore.
My
And there are
goodness.
very few of those left. And
Yes.
it moves me. I wrote a book called Spandau Ballet, which is about the Holocaust. And just so I go and I experience this. And you walk in and they have a pillar like you're walking through Auschwitz.
Yeah.
So you like walk in and all of a sudden it's you have to see it. It's one of those things
Wow.
I wish people who come to Dayton, Ohio, go to the Air Force Museum and walk through the Holocaust section. It changes
Yeah.
your life.
Yeah. I've done the DC Museum, the
Oh
Holocaust
yes.
Museum, and yeah, I don't think I spent enough time there, and I do try to go to other cities if they do have one. So I am putting that down in my book
Well,
then.
if you
So
come to Dayton, I'm walking you through it myself.
let's do
Okay.
it. I love that. Yes,
And of
please.
course, it's they have all the planes that are amazing.
Yeah.
The Wright brothers plane is there, and
Right.
it's
Right.
just an experience.
That's incredible. Wow. Now, last question. Who are some of your heroes and how have they inspired you?
Well, besides my two puppies,
Yeah.
I think my hero at this moment in my life is my partner.
Aw.
We're celebrating 23 years, and this person is so grounded and so open to what has happened, and it's encouraging, and has walked through with me as I unravel these things and the ups and the downs, and the harshness that I placed onto him
Yeah.
based on what I was going through. And to have that person sit there and say, "It's okay. I'm still here."
Ah,
So yeah, that's my hero.
wow. That's beautiful. I
Ah,
love
thanks.
that answer. And it is, I will say, it is very, how do I say this without crying? having a partner understand you on a level and accepting you for your trauma and everything that has transpired is really a magical thing. So congratulations
Well,
on,
thank you.
you said 23 years?
Yes.
23 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Congratulations to you both. And that makes
Well,
me so
thank you.
happy that you have someone in your corner and to be there for you in that capacity. So thank you
I
so
think
much
we
for
all
sharing.
need to, I think we all need that. And I think also
Absolutely.
because they could see potential that you have that you're unable to see at the moment.
Yeah,
So it's really important.
exactly. John Michael, I'm so grateful that we were able to have this conversation today. I truly cannot thank you enough for your bravery and your resilience and using your voice in a way that is helping people. Like I said, it's you may never know who you are affecting or, connecting with in your words. So truly thank you for providing so much insight and sharing these difficult stories that you've also never shared before in your past. So thank you so much for that. And I
Well,
appreciate
well,
you, of
thank you for creating a safe space that I could do that. And
course.
it's very important. And I want to thank you for being so transparent yourself, because I think that's one of the things that causes this kind of communication to happen. So
Yeah,
I appreciate that. And I would love to switch the seats with you sometime and interview you.
let's do
And we'll
it.
talk. I'm serious about that because I think it
Yeah,
would be great. I
yeah.
would love to find out what's your superpower. You know?
I know. I haven't answered any of these questions either.
Oh, good. So
So maybe
we'll go
you will
from
have
there.
to be my, yep. Hey,
I'm
maybe
ready.
that's
I'm
it.
ready.
Okay,
Let's do
we'll
it.
plan that out. Amazing. Thanks, John Michael.
Thank you.
Be sure to tune in next week as I sit down with my dear friend and talented cinematographer from In Pursuit with John Walsh, Benjamin Wolfe. Benj has an impressive portfolio working as a director of photography on a range of projects, from true crime series to paranormal shows, and even a groundbreaking series about trans children and drag. You won't want to miss this conversation. This is True Crime in Hollywood, a personal tale. Thank you for listening. And as always, remember the victims and embrace the survivors.